1. After the death of priestess Yang Emiko, Yeo-il Sin Ying, at age 118 and 2 months, her house slave Sin Ying, 20, received 2,000 bronze Japanese coins and 12 silver plates as an inheritance by Emiko's son Gong. Emiko was buried on the island kingdom Yuza, Aliug Island, by her children, grandchildren and several other priestesses from Wa, Japan, who knew her. 2 days later Sin Ying adopted Emiko's Korean surname as her own. This was recommended by Gong in order to avoid taxes. Also, women were not permitted to receive any inheritance. Women were not even recognized as legal owners of property. So by taking the Korean surname of her former mistress she could pass on as a daughter or close relative of Gong, who was a respected military officer. 2 weeks later she migrated towards the Han River province of the Korean Kingdom Beach. There she rented an apartment just outside the capital Ryazug, Seoul. She only lived for a month in her new place before all hell broke loose. Several Chinese provinces in the north rebelled and declared their independence from China. This had an direct impact on Korea. For the next 2 weeks the prices of commerce increased. This led to an economic recession in Beach, combined with civil unrest. There were also pro-China militant groups in Beach that desired to make mainland Korea a provincial state of the Chinese Empire by overthrowing the established ruling class. The news of the rebellion in China sparked those militants to terrorism many towns near the shores. This led to a civil war in northern provinces of Beach and to many looting incidents in Sela and Goryeo. 3 months after Sin Ying's arrival at the Han River, the region became like a police state. There were soldiers and auxiliary troops marching around continuously and many people were arrested without explanation. The wife of Gong, Larissa, compelled her husband to flee towards the Danube Provinces in Europe for safety. She did this because there were also news messages arriving of revolts in Tibet, India, Persia and parts of Ethiopia. The instability of China, the central power in the whole of Asia, led to instability in many other places that were strongly connected to Asia due to economics. The Roman Empire was still de facto world power that kept balance and dominance in the world. The Roman embassy in Korea offered free Roman citizenship for all who would seek their refuge in Rome during the emerging crisis in Asia. The governor-diplomat of the embassy prepared 50 chariots who would transport asylum seekers towards the Black Sea region, a journey that will take 31 days via the Siberian roads. These roads were safer for travel due to the Chinese roads being the target of rebels. Larissa remained with her husband, while Sin Ying applied for asylum. The asylum seekers didn't receive the offer for free. The price was 100 silver coins per person. One of the silver plates of Sin Ying was received as sufficient payment. The value of it was 300 silver coins. She received 20 Roman solidus, golden, coins as change. The change money far exceeded the worth of 200 Korean silver coins she ought to receive back. She didn't knew about it. This was done on purpose. Sin Ying entered one of the chariots with only 2 packages of luggage with her. She received a passport and a document with her new Latin name, Xibai. The chariot departed only 3 months and 11 days after her arrival in her Korean apartment. 2. After a journey of 28 days 5 chariots arrived at the Sarmatian country Velta, which lies at the Baltic Sea. Velta had strong ties with Gaul and there were many Roman immigrants living over there. In Velta the chariots stopped in order to inform at the embassy what took place past weeks in the Roman world. One of the chariot drivers received a newspaper, a scroll with news messages. Emperor Constantine is being crowned King of Britain, with the title Briticus Maximus. By this decree he has gained more legal and political powers in Britain than the emperors before him. This decree also made Britain practically independent from Rome, while it remained legally a province of the empire, due to the fact that the Emperor of Rome is also head of state, King of Britain. This was done in order to appease the nationalism that had arisen among the Celtic tribes in Britain, during the civil wars within Rome of past 20 years. It was also done to unify the tribes in harmony by building a Roman-British nation that would remain a part of the empire. Also, Christians within Britain became dominant in the urban regions. Many churches were founded and the members of those congregations increased into the tens of thousands. There was also news from the Danube Empire. That's how the Danube provinces around the Danube River, Noricum, Peroia, Moesia and parts of northwestern Illyricum, were called, had around 8.540000 inhabitants in total. Noricum had around 1.500000 inhabitants. The mining industry in Noricum collapsed and it was now replaced with a blacksmith industry for making metal products and armor for the military. Furthermore, the King of Noricum had granted provincial citizenship to 5,000 Germans that took refuge into Noricum. Also, there were villages constructed near the Dravus River, in the south of Noricum, where Asian refugees will be granted housing. There are already 550 Asian asylum seekers in Noricum. Because Noricum, even though a Roman province, is still a client Celtic kingdom, the King of Noricum has the rule concerning the refugees. Emperor Constantine is occupied with religious reforms throughout the empire. When Sin Ying read about the refugee villages in Noricum, she requested the chariot rider to bring her to Noricum. The driver explained to her that the journey to Noricum will take between 4 to 6 days due to the weather conditions in Greater Germany. The roads in Greater Germany aren't well maintained as the Roman roads within the empire. A lot of rainfall may cause delays for travelers. The trip can be made if she would pay 1 solidus extra. She agreed. After 8 days in Velta, she was transported through Greater Germany towards Noricum. The journey took 8 days due to flooded roads by the rain. The horses needed to rest and be sheltered for 2 days at a local hostel too. She arrived at the imperial border at 8:30 in the morning. The driver spoke with the military guard and showed her passport. She was admitted into the empire, in the city Vidobor, Vienna. The town had around 40,000 civilians and 10,000 troops that were stationed. Furthermore, there was a big marketplace where many international commerce was bought and sold. The economy of Vidobor, which lies at the border with the province Peroia, is one of the biggest of Noricum and of the whole Alpine region. Sin Ying was told to remain in Vidobor until they've processed her asylum procedure. She began working in a bath house for 1 denarius a day. She lived in a guest house together with many Auric peasant women. 3. The guest house belonged to the German Auric dynasty of the Roxaeras. The Roxaeras are the descendants of Roxanne Salicis Salicidii Potiphus, the Frisian wife of a Hebrew politician named Simon. She founded a small town named Rosas Town in the Dravus Lake district, in the south of Noricum. Her husband was from the Saliceus criminal syndicate which dominated northern Italy and the Alpine regions for around 232 years. Roxane has a daughter named Rosa, who begot 2 children with a Roman soldier from Alemia. After that marriage failed, Rosa married Robertus. Robertus was a younger brother of Eileen, a slave who managed Roxane's town in her absence. They had 4 children together. Eileen begot 7 children with one of Roxane's sons named Judaeus. One of the sons of Rosa, from her marriage with the Alemia, married her half-sister Seraphi and had 10 children together. All these children married each other and kept this tradition going. They named themselves the Roxaires and managed to keep their wealth within their relatives. Today they are 6 generations further and they are 52 in number. They live in Vidobor and they have disconnected themselves from all their other relatives. They have a monopoly on the rice trade with the Chinese community in Italy and they are dominant with the Asian coconut oil which is imported from the Srivijaya Islands. Their wealth is around 2 million denarii and 500,000 asses. The head of the family is the grandson of Rosa, Gero Saliceus, 86 years of age. The provincial government of Noricum as well as the royal house of Noricum are both enemies of the Roxaires. The Saliceus syndicate has been abolished 2 decades ago when the trade in Italy and the Danube Provinces collapsed. Also half of the people from the Saliceus household, including the Hebraicus branch of Simon of his descendants, were executed publicly and their wealth confiscated and used for military defense of Christian towns. Gero's father, who was the son of Judaeus, managed to take away 1 million asses from the tax money of Peroia under the disguise of charity. This he used to sustain the Roxaires sect. It was only after his death that this was discovered. The Roxaires are tolerated because of the employment their syndicate offers to peasants and to sojourners. Also, the sect is keeping the Chinese influences at a minimum. At the same time, the provincial government fears a potential coup that might originate from the Roxaires. The royal house of Noricum is afraid that if the Roxaires increase in influence they might revolt against Rome and establish their own country in the east of Noricum, with Vidobor as their capital. Many of the troops in Vidobor are dependent upon the Roxaires for their jobs outside of the military camp. In Vidobor most of the hostels and merchandise shops are owned by the Roxaires and also the city treasury is in debt to Gero. But neither the king of Noricum nor the provincial officials take any direct action against Gero's household. They, however, have placed spies around their houses to report everything to the government. Roxane's town in the south of Noricum has been converted into a refugee camp for Asians. The town was held intact by Stiphos, a son whom Eileen gave birth to in her older years after her husband left her for a man. Stiphos was born when Eileen was 78 years of age. Eileen became 109 and died around 118 years ago. Stiphos lived in the town and begot children since 18 years of age. His firstborn was a daughter named Eileen, after his mum. Eileen the younger was only 14 when her grandmother died. Eileen the younger became the mother of Gero and his 2 brothers later in her life. Her early life she spent mostly in Gaul and Noricum. Her father Stiphos was charged with tax fraud and executed at age 65. Eileen the younger remained living in the town till her death at age 112. Her son buried her next to his siblings at a family grave next to the village. Since her death the town has been abandoned. The government of Noricum became suspicious, so they offered Gero to make the family town a refugee center. In return he would become a senator into the provincial senate. This they did to get a hold of his household's activities. Gero agreed, also because he knew that there was a threat behind their offer. He understood they wanted him and his household to back off from the southern economy of the province. The town now has 48 refugees, which are 8 families and some single people who arrived in Moesia as refugees that same year. The refugees are not permitted to work outside of the town and they are not allowed to enter any other city or town without written permission by the provincial capital. This was done according to the policy of the Roman Senate to prevent refugees from outside the empire to influential within the empire. The Danube Provinces in total have around 6,000 refugees. This because the other provinces in the east refused to house the refugees. Emperor Constantine rejected an appeal from the consuls to redistribute the refugees throughout the empire. He states that it's uncertain whether the refugees will mean harm or good to the empire on the long term. It is therefore better to contain them near the Danube border, where they can be deported out any time they cause civil or social unrest, than to distribute them everywhere and make it easier for them to hide from the authorities. Also, the refugees were prohibited to marry civilians nor were they permitted to own any slaves. This was done to prevent procreation with Roman civilians, which would imply that they would have to be granted Latin rights because of the children. Also, slaves could be used as a form of secret procreation, which would mean they could multiply and spread around without notice. Some of the refugees had been incarcerated several times due to violations of other refugees. The punishments are harsh to prevent repetition. The city council have decided to place Sin Ying into that same town. 4. Tiberia, the daughter of a horse breeder Tammuz, was converted to Christianity. However, she still kept her faith hidden in order to avoid being arrested. She has no confidence at all in the Edict of Milan. She has lesser trust in the emperor, who claims to be a Christian himself but at the same time promotes Eastern religions into his literature. Tiberia lives near Hedravus Lake where the Dravus River ends. Outside her village there is a narrow road that leads to the Roxaeras village. The village is surrounded by auxiliary troops that are stationed to prevent the migrants from moving out of the town. But Roman civilians are permitted to enter and leave the town at will. She often visits the Roxaera village. The grandfather of her grandfather was the elder brother of Eileen the Elder, who managed the town during the lifetime of Roxanne the Frisian. Tiberia has another link to the Roxaera household than that. Her grandfather married into the cult to gain some benefits. The marriage was annulled by the government under the pressure of Eileen the Younger and he was given some money and told to leave. He used the money to buy horses for his backyard. That's how he began breeding horses. The marriage brought forth her mother, who was abandoned by her own relatives from the maternal side and she was never permitted to contact them, who married a Auric musician who also became a horse breeder. Both of Tiberia's parents are pagan and they worship the Celtic god Lugh and Odin, the Germanic god. Tiberia is the 16th child of her parents and she has 5 younger siblings too. Her mother's fertility is praised in the village, 22 children, one of them died at childbirth. Tiberia has lost all familiarity with her village after she became a Christian. First she was quite skeptical about the faith of those people. She even ridiculed and resisted their message. Yet, after the compelling of one of her Christian friends, Alina, she reconsidered her position. She has been born again for 4 years. She sometimes joins a house church at the capital in secret. 5. Tiberia left home on Friday evening. Just before sunset, she went towards the Roxaera village. There she went to the hidden church building that was made inside one of the basements of the town. In the basement there were Bibles, Bible studies, written confessions of converts and many other literature about the historical economy of the first Christians from the time of the Apostles until the time of Emperor Caracalla. The basement was a previous treasury of the town, even before the town was reconstructed by Roxanne from Frisia. Every day Friday night she joins them to have a church service. At this time, when Tiberia entered the town, there was an auxiliary spy that noticed her entering the town. He was hired by the provincial council in order to report anything suspicious or out of the ordinary that happened in the neighborhood. He has 4 other spies, women from the Daic temple in the capital, who are hired to him to accompany him in his spy activities. One of the Daic witches reported that there is probably an underground church in the town, which is attended by one of the grandchildren of the expelled son-in-law of one of the Roxaeras. At the same time, in Britain, at the public bath of Lidham, Lincoln, which is the capital of the Lidham district, a group of slaves join the bath in the evening weather. One of them is Isus, a young man from the Isai tribe, who worked as a mason, notices a corpse at one of the sides of the bath. He warns a centurion who is stationed near the bath. Immediately, everyone is evacuated from the bath. Within 2 hours the whole town was upset because of what happened. Crime is almost non-existent in the Lidham district. Isus was summoned by his master, who was a native architect working for the government. Isus was commanded to leave town together with the designs of the architect and to hand all them in with the Ministry of Interior Affairs in Lodium, London. That same moment, after receiving the bag with drawings, Isus took a healthy fast horse and went his way. Right after he left, the military closed the town so that nobody could enter nor leave, except troops and military officials. The mayor of the town also received orders from the general stationed at Eboracum, York, to give a report of all the minor incidents that happened lately. In the morning, around 5 o'clock, Isus arrived at the northern gate of the provincial capital of Roman Britain. He was permitted into town after showing a document signed by his master. At the ministry he leaves the drawings as his master commanded. The master of the lodge recommended him to remain in the capital for now till it became clear what was going on. He left anyway, but only 10 minutes on the highway back to Lidham, he encountered people fleeing towards him. He asked what was going on. There's a revolt going on in Lidham. Some Celtic nationalist cult has murdered one of the civil judges. Also, they have kidnapped several children as an hostage. The city is now guarded by the military. We are from a small town outside of the city. We fled because of the escalating situation. After hearing this, Isus decided not to return back. What could he do? When he entered back into Lodium, he heard some men talking about constructing a new town in Noricum, to maintain the influx of refugees entering the empire. He interrupted them, showed them a design he made himself, and claimed to be an architect himself. After pressuring them, they permitted him to join their business trip to Noricum. That same morning, around 11:30, he left in a ship in the London harbour. 6. After the church service, Tiberia left towards the small bathhouse. She always does this after a service. While she's in the bath, an Asian young woman, around her age, enters the bath too. She wears a brass necklace, which she placed on the edge of the bath. She never seen this Asian before. She must be a new around here, she thought, probably a refugee. After an half hour the Asian leaves the bath to dry herself. Tiberia followed her. She left the bathhouse and went towards a small apartment, just across the street. She forgot her brass necklace. Tiberia took it with her. That night she travelled, on an ass, towards the provincial capital. There she entered one of the public libraries. The library has thousands of books and old newspapers. She remained in the library for the night without anyone noticing her. When she later woke up, near the morning, she began searching again. And she found a book about Korean brass and golden jewelry. She matched the symbols on the necklace with the symbols printed in the textbook. She found that the symbol was used by noblemen and noblewomen from the Korean chieftains during the Songhua Confederacy. It continued into the Sela Kingdom and the User Kingdom. A golden version would be used by priestesses, female shamans and he-wives of regional chieftains. The bronze ones would be carried by the female and sometimes male slaves of noble people. This was done so that the difference between the noble and the slave couldn't be identified easily by robbers. The slaves were often in public, so they were the most likely to be robbed. Most robbers couldn't immediately recognize the difference between brass and gold. For that reason, the noblemen and noblewomen ordered brass counterfeits of their original golden jewelry to secure the original ones. Further, she found a newspaper from Jerusalem, of almost a half-year ago. The collapse of the Chinese Empire in their northern provinces led to a flood of refugees seeking refuge in Arabia and Europe, especially into the Danube Empire. Most of these refugees are from neighboring countries that are economically tied to the Chinese dominance in Asia. The 15 Roman embassies in Asia have offered asylum unto refugees at the price of silver. But most refugees choose the illegal way out of suspicion of the Roman embassies. She later found another report. This was about the Roxaras, especially about Roxanne, the all-alleged matron of the sect itself. Roxanne Salicis Silicidii Potiphus was a woman born in Frisia, in the town Bavakila, near the Frisian town Abulia city. Her grandfather served in the military and bought Roman citizenship that was passed down to his children and later grandchildren. Roxanne married a Hebrew scholar, Simon, who was born in Juvavum, Noricum. He was from a Hebrew criminal syndicate named Salicis. Roxanne gave birth to 21 children to Simon, during the first 2 decades and 4 years of their marriage. 10 sons: Simon, Petrus, Judaeus, Juvavum, Pottus, Victor, Valesius, Amos, Garnus and Naphtali, and 11 daughters: Helia, Kilia, Aura, Lisa, Julia, Vanessa, Polia, Alexandra, Mia, Otilia and Rosa. Her permanent fertility and her persistent health reversed her aging. She kept her youth even during her old age. This, however, led to rivalries with some of her daughters. During her 50s she lived separate from her husband. During this time she got into romantic affairs with 2 daughters, Seraphia and Yulia, of her husband that he begot with his concubine Bethy, a princess from a noble house from Videlicia. At this time she was confused and frustrated in her life. Later in her 60s, she got involved in an affair with a Frisian lover, which was the husband of Julia. Their affair was in secret, so a controversy was spared for decades. She gave birth to 4 children for him, within 3 years, a son Breivik and 2 daughters Carolina and Hannah. In her early 80s she also got involved into a scandal with a grandson of hers, whom she didn't knew was her grandson. She left for Aragos and gave birth to a daughter over there. But shortly after her pregnancy she remained extremely aroused and she hooked up with an Aragos retired soldier, whom she gave a twin daughter at age 94. Her Aragos lover thought she was only 35. At age 98 she reunited with her husband. She died at 119 years of age in Brigabo, Rhaetia. She was laid to rest in her homeland Frisia by her relatives. Her 27 children all attended the funeral. Her husband died years earlier and after her death their children each went their own way with their families. The Roxaea community was the initiative of her daughter Rosa, who wanted to keep the wealth secure. Due to the uncertainty of the Roman economy during her lifetime, Rosa had a similar attitude as her mother, when it came to sexual excitement and the need for adventure. But she could only not conceive as often as her mother did. Also, she didn't went as far as her mother by forcing herself violently upon others. Rosa died at age 101, divorced, and she became an adherent to the Christian faith during her 40s. After her years of fertility were over. She regularly attended church services during her later years in life. Rosa was horrified by the wickedness of her mother, but she never acted out against it while she was still alive. This was part to please her father whom she dearly loved and who also shared the same faith since the time he lived in Britain, before he met her mother. But she also did this to become more Christ-like. She refused to repay evil with evil, because she made up her mind to overcome evil with good. The ugliness of her mother, her willing insanity and narcissistic outlashes, whom she also recognized in some of her siblings, creeped her out. She even asked her father why he had married her. He explained that the marriage was not planned, but because she was pregnant he took his responsibility for his offspring. He himself also went no contact with her for decades to avoid her toxic behavior. Rosa passed away shortly after her mother passed away. She didn't want to be buried next to her mother in Frisia, because she didn't want to be identified with her at the resurrection that would come when Christ returns, so she was buried in Noricum, where also her later ex-husband and children lived. 2 of her children also became members of the faith, while the others retained the paganism of the Germans and the Celts. They also retained the practice of human sacrifice, but they did it in secret. It is estimated that the Roxaea dynasty sacrificed around 219 young children for fame and fortune. After reading this she began to understand why her grandfather was expelled from the dynasty. She knows that her grandfather is against human sacrifice, even though he is an adherent to Celtic folklore. It worked out for her, who would be born later in the future, so that she is free now as a believer. 7. The next morning she left the library unseen by others. She still had some Roman loaf bread with her from yesterday with some grapes. Outside her ass was still sleeping. The morning was cloudy and she saw that rain was coming. She departed on her mule towards the road. Some chariots passed her by. When she arrived at Roxeville, she went to the apartment where she saw the Asian go to yesterday. Upstairs she noticed that the door was open. Hello. No answer. I am Tiberia. I was at the bathhouse yesterday with you. No answer. She went inside. The apartment is clean, simple furniture and the curtains are closed. She opened the curtain, there's nobody outside. She turns to the sleeping corner of the apartment. The bed is made up and there's other brass jewelry on it. At the wall of the sleeping corner she sees a painting and a small map of Asia. There was bread on the kitchen corner with some honey in a large pot. Also some bottles with olive oil, some exotic oil and wine. Hello. Can I help you? She hears behind her in Greek with a weird accent. Oh my, she's terrified. I was only checking if you're here. Here? You left this yesterday in the bath. I came to give it back to you. It's okay, she smiles. I expected you here. You did, she's curious. I saw you walking through town when I arrived here 2 weeks ago. You're often here? She walks towards the kitchen corner and pours some wine in a cup and hands it to Tiberia. Drink. She drinks it while the Asian continues. I noticed that you had some peace around you. So when I saw you going to a bath once, I joined also. I left my brass necklace behind with the expectation that you would come after me. She sits down at the table and offers Tiberia a chair too. I am a refugee from Usa, a small island nation in the Far East. I fled here after chaos broke out in the Far East. I'm glad to live here within the Roman world. It's quite safe around here. Did you come alone? Yes. All alone. No relatives came with me. I came here to start a new life. Where did you learn Greek? My employers knew Greek due to their occupation in merchandise. So I picked it up too. Did you make any friends since you came here? I am doing that now. Ah. My name is Sin Ying. But you can call me Sabia. Many refugees take a Roman name when they migrate to one of the Roman provinces. What's yours? Tiberia. After the Tiber River you're Roman. Number. Celtic. I'm born in this region. Tiberia finished her wine. Guess we both have Italian names now. Are you going to the bath? Yeah. We two go together. Sin Ying picks a large bottle from beneath her bed. Let's go. 8. Most people in the town were still sleeping. On Friday nights it's common for them to become drunk at restaurants. The immigrants are no better. The bathhouse was empty. The water was refreshed yesterday evening by the guards who guard to town. In one of the rooms, there's a large table made of wood, decorated with a soft mattress. The table is used as a low bench by the bath visitors. There's also a mirror near a sink of streaming water. Sabia sat on the table, while Tiberia walked towards a mirror on the wall. The mirror was at the sink. Sabia brought some dried figs with her and a piece of thin Greek bread. All was laid on the table. She also had her bottle with fine olive oil and another pot with honey. So what was life like? Sabia. Where? In Korea. Ah well. Life isn't easy over there. She pours some olive oil in her left hand and begins to smear it on Tiberia's back. Stand still. My landlord Yu was an elder lady who lived as a high society priestess in Wa, Japan, She used to be a personal servant of Empress Himiko and later for a month under her successor, a male ruler. At that time she was arrested for treason to the regime. To prevent a social drama, he banned many priestesses, including Yu, to a colony of User Island. Yu was quite healthy, in shape and fertile despite her age. She also looked quite young. So she got involved with a local young man and they had a son together. That young lad is my father, who impregnated a Korean Chinese musician, who's my mother. I grew up in the mountainous region of Sela, on mainland Korea. Once every 4 months Dad would come by and would remain with us. He also had other kids around. He kept me hidden from you for years, till he became terminally ill. I stayed with him for those last years till his death. After his death, it was revealed by rumors who I was. She, being hurt by her husband's betrayal, nevertheless accepted me in her house as a house slave. We became close. After her death years later, her son, my half-brother, Gong, gave me a part of the inheritance and I migrated to the Han River region. Shortly after that, China became chaotic and it also led to separatists groups throughout Korea and Warsaw. Many people fled. There was a Roman embassy who offered Roman citizenship to who would seek refuge in the Roman Empire. I took it. And here I am around 45 days through mountains and cold regions to get here. This region is cold too, but except in the summer times. During summer it can become very hot around here. In harvest time many Roman carriages arrive here to trade with the farmers. Also, at that time the rice supply arrives from South China. Maybe now the price of the rice might be higher due to the instability of that region. My dad often eats rice. It's his favorite dish. Noricum is not located at sea, yet we have a lot of fish around here. Many of the fish are grown in aquaria by the government and others are done by local corporations in the Alpine lakes. This is done so that the need for trade with Italy would become uakari. Noricum doesn't have much domestic products for the Mediterranean market, let alone for the international market. So, the economy is kept going by trading with foreigners who aren't part of the empire. I noticed that there's a lot of cattle around here. Yeah. Most Auric people are farmers. Even in town many of them are active in the rural economy. The cities are for the majority prosperous because of the military-industrial complex at the Danube front. If Rome would ever annex Bohemia, Noricum would go bankrupt, because the military camps and the economies that sustain them would disappear. Bohemia is a country that's financed by the Roman government. Their king and noble houses are Roman citizens and loyal to the empire. And there are more smaller kingdoms in Greater Germany that are Roman colonies without being annexed into the empire. We have Bohemians living in our village too. Sabia now brings Tiberia to the table and she lies down after drinking some water. After dripping some olive oil on her front torso she continues to smear and massage. I traveled through Bohemia on my way to Noricum. It's similar to Noricum, only it has more smaller towns that here. The roads are also much thinner than the Roman roads. They do have aqueducts for the large cities. The road we traveled upon was going through 3 of the most important cities over there. I believe one of them was the capital. We stayed there for 1 night. They enjoy drinking beer over there. After oiling her skin, she powders dirt on her and removes it with a bronze stick. the Romans didn't use soap. This was their method of cleaning themselves before entering the bath. After this, Tiberia took a scale and washed herself with water from the sink. The water was relatively warm. I really would like to visit Bohemia. To be real, I'm tired of this region. Wanna see something new? You don't travel a lot, don't you? I never really did. There was only one time me and my family went to Peroia and Moesia. In Moesia we visited the beach at the Black Sea. The journey took 42 days in total. Moesia has a lot of businesses. It's a very rich place. It's even richer than Italy, Sardinia, Sicily and Corsica together. At least, that's what everyone is saying. I did notice that they had a lot of towns and the people there tend to wear much expensive gadgets. I've only seen this kingdom of the Roman Empire and it's gorgeous. I would like to remain here. For real. Yeah. And besides that, once in a while I can also visit Italy. I don't think the guards will let you pass. Well, I'll find a way for that later. After she dried Tiberia's skin with the towel, she threw it on the ground, and picked the pot with honey. Now a bit of honey for you. She picks a spoon and gives a bit of it to her mouth. After that she pours some of the honey on her belly. You often did this back in Asia. There was a lady in my hometown, which had a massage bar. There were slave boys who would massage the people in this manner. She made a lot of money with it. I went there a few times so I learned it by observing them. Sabia. Do you practice any religion? Number. In Korea there was this German woman, a Christian, who married my half-brother. I noticed that they had strict in their lives. So I became drawn to the faith of those people. Yet, I'm still confused about their message. You went to a service once. An assembly. I never did. I became good friends with my sister-in-law. She was the daughter of an evangelist. Those people aren't that loved in Korea. My grandmother, the mother of my father, was one of them also. My dad's name was Matthew. My grandmother was often ridiculed and disliked by her own kin. Also her husband left her and blamed her for his problems. She had a quite troubled life due to her faith. I understood, several years back, I believe it's around 8 years ago, that the Emperor of Rome, Constantine, became a believer too. Anyway, the news of him legalizing this sect of the Azari came as a shock to most in East Asia. But on the other hand, the religious freedom that became accepted in the Roman world also had an impact on the religious policies back home. I noticed that more people began to adopt this sentiment of tolerance. Tolerance. Folks aren't quite tolerant in Eastern Asia. Especially for those from that Christ movement. Many see them as troublemakers and coercio seekers. Often they are executed back home. I mean, in Eastern Asia. The same here, it still happens. But it went underground. My grandparents told me of how they used to throw those people before the lions in the arenas and theaters. So horrible. After that her skin was completely smeared into honey. Sabia dropped some grinded mint on her. Times are changing. Probably there will even come a time that Christianity will become the norm in the world. I don't really see that happening soon. There are a few million of you within the empire now. Right. And a few million outside also. Well, true. But look. If their savior can walk on water and turn water into delicious wine, then his followers are capable of transforming the world. 9. IQs arrived at Lutetia, Paris, with the masons. The town had a large harbor to store merchandise and documentation. Furthermore, the town had a big pantheon and several smaller temples. The journey from London to Paris took 31 hours, by ship and by a speed service of race chariots on the military roads. The next part will be from there to Claudia Viarum, the provincial capital of Noricum. They will take the route through Videlicia and the Alpine roads through Noricum. It might take 2 days. For now the men are at a restaurant eating some fish dish from Spain. IQs took a walk through the town after his meal. The town had less than 6,000 civilians and there were not many villages around. The town Lutetia Parisiarum, the Lutetia of the Paris people, was a Celtic settlement of the Celtic Paris tribe. After Gaul became Roman territory, the Paris people received their own district under the sub-province Belgium. For practical purposes it was, a few years later, assigned to the sub-province Lugdunensis. The Paris tribe almost no significance at all in Gaul's society. Their only source of income is wine trade, religious festivals and the industry of blacksmiths. The Paris tribe was led by a group of noble elders, who were also responsible for civil law enforcement. IQs drank some fresh water at a fountain near the aqueduct. At the aqueduct he saw 3 golden coins thrown into the fountain. It were coins from around 80 years ago. Not in usage anymore. IQs saw the direction in which the coins were scattered. He ended up behind the fountain. In a big bush he found a foundation of a house that was broken down. He found 2 golden cups also and a small scroll. When he opened it, it was a map of Noricum. The map belonged to a corporation named Roxea, a society of the Alpines, and it had the address of a small town called the Roxea village. It contained the description of a basement with a safe, filled with tax money from the time of Emperor Geta, who was assasinated by his own brother. IQs never heard of such a corporation. He took the objects with him and hid them in a sack. At the municipal house of the town he informed about the Roxea Society. One of the administrators opened an archive and showed him some records. The Roxea Society is a Noricum sectarian family that's settled in Vidobor. They are traders in rice, base artwork and Asian coconut oil. They are very wealthy and very secretive. They opened an office here 93 years ago. They had many orders from Britain, Ireland, Aquitaine and Belgium. Their income was 1.500000 dearie each year. The treasury of Lutetia received much tax money from them. But some of the Roxea household became involved with illegal trade. They committed tax fraud and they owed the provincial government of Lugdunensis 3.500000 sestertius coins and 300.000 denarius. The office they built here was abandoned by their representative. 5 years after, no sign was heard anymore from them. The governor of Lugdunensis commanded the town to break down the house and to replace it with a garden of fountains. The Roman state refused to prosecute the Roxea dynasty and the debt was later erased from the official records in order to cover up the mismanagement of the taxation office that's held by the Parisian elite. Mismanagement. Paris, as this town is also called, is not important at all. We have around 6,000 inhabitants and our type has around 20,000 people alone. We are a minority in Gaul and in the whole Roman Empire. Our regional autonomy is due to the privileges given by the province of Lugdunensis, which we received in exchange for taxes and pro-Rome sentiments among our people. The Roxaeras haven't been here since the time they abandoned their former office here. That's around 51 years ago. The time they were here they benefited our economy and they caused employment for former slaves. Those people are quite dangerous. The Roxaeras. Why is that? Dude, listen. This is the real world. This is no fairy tale land. No corporation becomes established in society unless you are in agreement with the imperial cult of Rome and you're an associate and inaugurated in some regional temple cult. To become a powerful merchandise dynasty as the Roxaeras you have to be completely sold out to the devil. That's how simple it is. The Roman state does not permit free enterprise in the empire. Only the elite of the ethnicities and tribes within the empire are permitted to have economic dominance. In return for the favor of Rome they have to suppress anyone else in their region from becoming wealthy or influential. The moment someone becomes a bit well known and influential, they are gang-stalked by the local temple cults of the regional elite. If he or she does not join, then the targeted individual is kidnapped and jailed in a concentration camp. Or they are executed without any trial in the court of law. That's why us Parisians remain quiet and many of us don't make the effort to become great within Gaul. Fame and fortune come with a big price. You'll have to lose your soul and all your self-respect and self-value if you want to join that club. Listen, dude. I don't know what your plan is, but leave those people alone. I don't care if you're some thug thinking you can rob them, fine to me if you can drop some of the looting for me. I'm glad, but listen. Don't get involved with them. There are rumors that they kidnap people to practice cannibalism in their blood orgies. Also, they are all inbreds, which is also a big taboo within the Roman world. So think twice. Fear not, man. I'm not going to join anyone. I just found some old scroll, hidden in the dirt, in some closed put, and I dried the scroll. And here it is. He showed the scroll. What is it? Check again. Wow. Oh my God, he is shocked. This is a map, with address, of one of their houses where they have hidden their ill-gotten money. Let's keep it between us, okay? I'll go over there and I'll check what there is for me over there. If you join we can share the loot. Are you in? 10. Isus arrived in Claudia via Rome together with the other Masons. The trip took only 3 days. At the capital there was a young couple from the Roxaea dynasty that offered to lend the Masons money for their construction of a new mall, with a very low interest rate. The Masons decided within 3 hours to receive the loan. Isus dismissed himself from them and travelled towards the Roxaea town. He went by a donkey to not give the impression he was wealthy. Disguised, he arrived at the town. There were many East Asians living there. They spoke a weird language he didn't understand. There were some auxiliary troops patrolling through the small town too. Isus broke into an apartment complex where some Asians and other immigrants lived. He found an apartment with a view upon the public bath. He managed to open the lock without damaging it. He checked inside to see if he could find any information about who lived there. He didn't find any. When he left the apartment complex, after searching through some other apartments also, he figured out that most immigrants here are from Korea and northern China. He then went to the central building of the town, which was open to everyone. This is the address, he thought, but I can't do this in open daylight. I need to do this at night, when everyone's asleep. When he's about to leave, he notices two women passing by. Both are carrying baskets with fruit, bread, herbs and honey pots. One looks like a local native, while the other is an Asian immigrant. The Asian is carrying a necklace and several rings that shine like gold. The women walk towards the apartment complex he just broke into. Oh dear! I forgot my golden coins there. Crap! I need to get it back or else I'm broke. He walks right after them without them noticing. Inside the complex he hears them walk to the same room where he entered the first time, where he also lost his small purse with coins. But just a few minutes later the women leave. I got this. Inside he searches all around the place but he doesn't find anything. Then he hears them opening the lock of the door. He quickly hides under the bed. Right on time. Where did you leave it? At the table. Fine. How long will the ride to provincial border take? About an hour, I think. So we will probably be back by tonight. Sure. The market will be attended by many Italians too. Most of them are from Verona or Aquileia. Yo! Did you leave a little purse over here? Number. I don't even have a purse. Ah, all right. Sabi notices that some of the objects in her apartment have been moved. Let's go. She drops the purse on her bed and walk away with Tiberia. When he hears the door closing, he comes out. He finds his purse. Right when he's about to leave the complex, he is arrested by two auxiliary troops and placed inside a chariot towards the house of incarceration at the capital. The two friends warned the guards outside immediately about their suspicions, so two remained behind to check the front door. The women cancelled their plans to visit the provincial border of Noricum, Italy. Instead they returned back to Sabia's apartment. At this time, however, the guards let Isus go after he bribed them with 2 solidus. He, however, was told by them never again to return to that village. He told them about the treasure inside. The 2 guards then plotted together with him to rob the treasury 2 days later, at night. Auxiliary troops were not paid much by the military and their workload was heavy too. This made corruption a common theme among the auxiliaries. 11. 3 weeks later 17 new refugees arrived in the town. At this time Tiberia was at her father's farm taking care of the horses. Sabia recognized one of the women that arrived in town. It was the granddaughter of Yeo-il, her former stepmom and master. Immediately, she went outside and dragged her into her apartment. Sin Ying. Nice to see you. This is a very strange welcome. What are you doing here? I fled. Due to the chaos. You're lying. Why would I lie about that? Look. Don't play games on me. Why did you flee and ended up right in the same village I am? Don't come with that coincidence bullshit because I don't take it. She sits down while Sin Ying is still demanding an answer. My husband left me. He had enough. After Grandma died there was no more source of income for him and my family-in-law. My mum would other send me some aid, which I gave unto him. When Grandma died Mum told me she was done with me. After a while my husband, well ex-husband now, married another woman without even telling me. I went to Uncle Gong, but he sent me away. So I began looking for you. People told me you left for Rome a week ago. So I asked one of the administrators where your chariot would go. They informed me about the Danube province of Noricum. So I paid to travel to Vidobor, Vienna. There was news of Koreans residing in a small town in the south of the province. So I joined some of the refugees to this town. What were you thinking? I just... What? I want to start over. But I didn't want to stay over there. I did much stuff I'm not proud about. I thought that maybe if I'm here, and you're here, at least there's someone I know. You don't make any sense. But listen. I'm fine with you here. I'm just quite surprised. I don't blame you. You need a place to stay. Right. Well, you can stay here. As long as you get a job too. Fine. Sabia sat down on her bed. Thanks. Sabia thought about all that happened past week. She decided to leave the past alone. Look. I'm living here now. I'm not planning to ever go back to East Asia. If that's your plan too. Great. I'll tell people you're my elder sister. I have a friend here, Aorica, she's Christian by the way. I went to one of her assembly services once. Maybe it's also something for you. Better now. I can't even speak the language. True. I forgot about that. You found a mate here. A man. Not yet. I hope to find one. A good one this time. I realized I was stupid for holding on to something that was never there in the first place. He never changed and I accepted that he probably will never change. I had to stop abusing others just to appease him. I permitted him to get away with a lot. I want to develop and become better too. That old life. Well. That old cursed existence. I didn't want it anymore. It's not just you. Your own parents also permitted you to remain in that circumstance. Yes, you were wrong. But it wasn't just you. Others also enjoyed seeing you miserable. They are responsible for you also. I have to say that Lady Yeo-il, your grandmother, was also wrong. She should have treated you with mercy. I mean, let's be real here. She was a priestess in the Sun cult in WA. That cult practices human sacrifice. Don't tell me that she never consented to the kidnap, ritual abuse and murder of children of women during all those years as a priestess. She often spoke bad about you, yet she herself was also persistent in her own wickedness. Also, she was a bit jealous. Jealous. You're young and attractive. Despite her old age, she was still attractive, fit and in a good shape. Yet, most people didn't give her any attention. I heard of others that knew her that during her young years she would prey on vulnerable girls instead of looking for a husband. She used to be a big drama queen and very hostile to anyone who would challenge her opinions. Her witchy attitude made many to dislike her, and a lot of men never even dared to approach her. Your mother she conceived in her older years. When she was in her 50s, out of desperation she hooked up with a young man and she became pregnant. Later, in her 80s I believe, she met my father and gave birth to Uncle Gong. Dad was only 19. I mean, he didn't knew at the time. He thought she was only 22, because that's how she looked. Her hair didn't become that grey at all and her skin was still soft. He found out much later in their marriage about it. That's when he began chasing other ladies and he met my mum at a fishing trip and impregnated her. So, look. Don't let people who themselves refuse to repent, condemn you. They are just using you as a scapegoat to justify their junk. Now, I'm not sure if Lady Yeo-il repented of her past. I barely saw her the past months of her life. Nevertheless, she was someone that didn't permit others to bother her with their negative opinions. I mean, yes, she was in her older years, yet she kept feeling young and believing she was young. That whole old age mindsets never came into her. And she had some friends who were Christians also. She didn't admit it. But it's those few friends from her past that influenced her to claim eternal youth. Even though she remained pagan herself, all those decades, she did benefit of their teachings. I'm planning to do the same. Remaining young until my old age. That's great. I wanna do that too. 12. Sabia wakes up. Her lover, a slave guy from a remote village who escaped to Roxaya town, is asleep and faced towards the wall. She removes his arm from around her and leaves for the ban house. It's a bit after midnight and the stars are bright. Inside the bath she finds Tiberia. You're late here at this hour. The same I can ask of you. Tiberia smiles and continues oiling herself. I noticed you had a new house slave. That's my elder sister. She lived with me. She also fled Korea. I meant that other one. Ah, that's Alors. He fled from a prison camp at the border with Rhaetia. He's 20. He is taking his refuge in this town also. And, well, maybe he'll be a daddy soon. Ah, I got you. Some refugees are planning to move illegally towards Gaul and Britain. I will stay here when they leave town. About 90% of the town will migrate soon. There will probably remain only like 15 people left, including me and my elder sis. And Alors. With our babies. You know I'll make an edict for this town. Those that are left should multiply quickly in order to prevent the authorities from noticing anything. Or to prevent decay from entering this place. That also. So you have anyone in mind? Not yet, Lady Sabia. But I'll obey your edict. Ha ha ha, euro. They laugh. You remember that robber from a while back? She walks towards the pool. He was released by the authorities. But that's not all. He and 2 of the auxiliary troops disappeared from Noricum. Nobody knows where they are. I found out, by my grandfather who still receives news from his family-in-law, that this town had a big chamber with much money and golden objects. Those 3 robbed the whole chamber. The chamber was a secret hiding place of the stolen tax money that the Roxayers robbed in Gaul. The Roxayers are now in sorrow because they lost 1/3 of their wealth just like that. She enters the pool. 10 suspects were arrested, and 2 executed. The others were released due to lack of evidence for their involvement. Well, this village will be abandoned soon. So I will come living here. Good idea. Sabia entered also.